justify in any way.
Hear me?
Yes.
And this part is not open, this part of our communications are not open to like people.
Okay.
Charles, I'm going to turn the mics on when the meeting begins.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
So Remy, are the mics on? Okay. I'm glad everyone could make it, if only mostly by Zoom. Appreciate that. This is the October 12th meeting of the Charlottesville Civilian Police Oversight Board. Does anyone have any announcements? It is now 6:33. Okay. So the first element of our agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anyone in the room or on the phone have any comments or amendments, suggested amendments to the agenda? I guess not. Can we therefore entertain a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. As allowed by Robert's Rules of Order for small boards, I will second the motion to approve the agenda. Vice Chair Frazier?
Yes.
Aye. Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Reverend Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Board, the chair votes yes. So the agenda has been approved unanimously. I'd just like to say that in the second half of this meeting, we'll be going into a closed session. And the next order of business here is the approval of minutes from our last meeting in August. Is there anyone who has any amendments, changes, suggestions? Motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Reverend Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Okay, and I make it unanimous, approval of the minutes. Okay, the next order of business is a presentation by Chief Kachas on automated license plate readers.
The folks doing the presentation, we're told to be here at 7.
Oh,
That's what they're told. But I could call them, I think they're ready, I'll get them. Can you give me about 5, 10 minutes?
what we could do, why don't we go into the closed meeting? So that's not, there won't be a big hurry.
Chief, we're going
You do a
to buy you
close.
some time.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why.
Okay. Okay, so we will now go into a closed session, and then you read this, yeah, to discuss the executive director's recommendation regarding an outstanding review request.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Virginia Code, I hereby move that the Police Civilian Oversight Board close this open meeting and convene in a closed session as authorized by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for discussion related to performance of an employee of a public body. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, you got a motion, you got a second.
Second, okay. Do I call for the vote or do you?
You go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
I vote yes.
okay. Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Reverend Turner Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we, people who are on Zoom, you will be getting an invitation from Inez very shortly, a minute or two, to go onto another Zoom call with, for the closed session. So stand by.
They just have to.
It's the invitation.
Does she have a grandmother? Let's see, is Mr. Wait for Mr. Fleming to get back on, and then we'll get together. Yep.
Fleming, here we go. All right, we're back on board. All right, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay. I move that this board certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mendez,
Aye. Yes.
Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Reverend Patricia Jones. You're muted, Patricia. Yes, okay. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
okay. Mr. Watson,
He doesn't get.
he doesn't vote, okay.
He wasn't-
And I vote aye, okay. So the motion carries, we're back into open session.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to yield the gavel at this time to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the board accept the executive director's recommendation in the matter we discussed.
Aye.
Well, you're going to second?
Oh, second, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then you do the rest of the,
Okay. Mr. Mendez,
yes.
Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. Jones Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
and I vote aye as well.
We're good.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Can I have the gavel back?
You may.
All right. Thank you all, for the board members, for coming to this closed meeting. The next item on our agenda, which we had hoped to get to a little earlier, was a presentation on automated license plate readers by Chief Kachis, and so.
You guys move the thing for me,
Yeah,
Howie.
go ahead.
Do I need to move it over, or?
Please.
All right. Keep it? I'm going to listen to that person. Well, good evening, and it's great to see you all. I want to go ahead and talk about a few things in reference to the block program that we've been discussing with City Council and multiple neighborhood groups. Today, we're going to have a presentation that my staff will present to you here shortly. We also have representatives from Flock Safety here to answer any technical questions that the board may have on privacy and how the system works and all those details that I may not be as educated to speak on. We brought the professionals that know the system better than anybody to talk about those to answer your questions. I want to get into just quickly and describe how this came about. Several months ago, the city manager, Rogers, put together a internal work group within the city government to look at ways to address gun violence utilizing a whole-of-community approach. Members of this work group was the police department, Parks and Rec, Public Works, Human Services, Social Services, and a few others. And as a result of this work group, we met over a few months. We came up with several recommendations that we recommended to council as a group. Of those recommendations, we had some of them were increased programming for youth, development of a strategic plan to address gun violence, and then implementation of data-driven approaches to gun violence. The data-driven approaches to gun violence is where Flock came into play. as we were looking at data, specifically crime data within the city of Charlottesville, it quickly stood out a direct correlation between stolen vehicles and our shootings, and stolen vehicles and our shots fired calls. And you'll see during our presentation 2 heat maps, and you can see how they almost overlay each other exactly. It's also important to note that of our 5 homicides, of our 5 murders that we've had in the city this year, all 5 involved a vehicle. When we were thinking of ways to, again, this group was talking about ways to address gun violence, and it's a complex issue. We all here know that the police aren't going to solve the gun violence issue on our own. I mean, there's root causes of violence that are beyond our capacity. And so when we look for ways to address it, ideally, we want to address gun violence in a way that limits tension between police and the community. We are working really hard in building back community relationships and building trust within our community. So when we come up and try to talk about strategies to address gun violence, we are very purposeful when we are developing those strategies to ensure that it limits that tension between the police and the community. So we looked at Flock. We looked at what other jurisdictions are using it. And we found there's a lot. Very like-sized jurisdictions, like-sized demographics, to include Alexandria, Fairfax, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads, Newport News, Richmond. All these jurisdictions are using this program, and I've been seeing significant results. The Norfolk Police Department, for example, recently just gave a presentation at one of their meetings, and since they've implemented their 172 flock cameras within the city of Norfolk, homicides are down 40%, non-fatal shootings are down 30%, and overall total violent crime is down 21%. So when we presented this to council, council was pretty clear that they wanted a robust community outreach strategy to educate the public and talk to the public and get input. And so that's what we've been doing. We've used media, both print and radio and television, to talk about it. We did a news release where we advertised an email for questions. Since we've put that email out there, we've only received 5 emails with 5 questions. We have spoken to several community groups, to include Venable Community Association, Fifeville Community Association, Friends of Downtown, North Downtown Association. We are scheduled next Wednesday for 10th and Page Neighborhood Community Association, and at the end of the month, Fry Springs Community Association. And the feedback we have been getting has been overwhelmingly positive and in support of it. And so I realize, though, that there is also a concern about privacy, and I am sympathetic to that concern, and I want to hear from folks who have those concerns. So again, we have that email out there. If somebody wants us to come speak to their community group, if they want to have a town hall in their living room, on their front porch, wherever it may be, to sit and have a conversation about this, please send it to that email, and we will be there, and we will do that, because we want to hear from everybody. We want to hear from everyone on this topic. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to my staff to do the presentation, and then we'll answer any questions at all that the board has. And again, folks from Flock Safety are here to answer technical questions or anything else. Okay?
How are you all tonight? My name is Joey Lewis. I'm a lieutenant with the police department. I'm over infrastructure and technology as well as investigations. So I was tasked with creating what our flock safety proposal would look like, and that's what you're going to see here tonight. So this first slide, this is all the municipalities right now in Virginia. There might be some more. This was created back in July. Where every one of these red dots is somewhere that has flock safety already deployed, whether it's 1 camera or 150 cameras. You can go. So what are the benefits of flock safety to the Charlottesville Police Department? It's a very valuable tool for amber and silver alerts. If you're familiar with those, amber alerts are endangered juveniles. Silver alerts are endangered elderly people. Blue alerts are threats to law enforcement from other jurisdictions. They work the same way. Data is collected, whether it be a license plate, information from a call, and then broadcast out over the NCIC system, which is the National Criminal Intelligence Center system. And that gets downloaded into like the DMV system. So when we run a tag, it'll come back with an alert that there's a want on that vehicle or a hit on that vehicle. So most times that these alerts have vehicle registration associated with them, they're entered in the NCIC and will automatically be flagged by the flock cameras. This will alert all officers that are on the system of the registration sighting, which will lead to more successful conclusions to these cases. So flock is a web-based system. Every officer has a mobile data terminal in their car, a laptop, and everybody will be logged in. If a vehicle of interest passes one of the cameras, it'll send up an alert on their terminal saying that this vehicle passed this camera at this time. Also a valuable tool for the successful identification and further investigation of suspect vehicles in shootings, robberies, and stolen vehicles. Stolen vehicles are pretty self-explanatory. We have a registration of the stolen vehicle. If it passes a camera, it's going to let us know that that stolen vehicle just passed a camera and when. Shootings are kind of going back in time after the incident has occurred. Detectives can use flock safety cameras if they develop a suspect vehicle description. Even if it's just a silver four-door sedan with no tag information, you can actually go back and search for silver four-door sedans that were in that area that may have passed the camera at that time. From there, the detectives would have to weed out which ones are not actually associated with the crime itself. So Hopewell Police Department, again, this PowerPoint was made in July. This was from February 2023 to July of this year. From just in that time frame, from flock alone, 2 homicide arrests were made, 1 robbery arrest was made, 10 stolen vehicles were recovered with 8 arrests made in those cases, 1 hit and run was closed, and a theft of a catalytic converter. You heard the chief talk about the Norfolk crime stats going down once flock was implemented. Every department that we've spoken to, it's been the same case across the board. So Flock Safety deploys solo license plate reader cameras in strategic areas designated by us at CPD. They only provide still shot images of vehicles and their respective registrations as they pass by the camera. They are not video cameras. They are not live feed. They are still shot cameras only. They are not connected to the DMV database. So it is simply a picture of either the front or the rear tag of the vehicle, whichever way the camera's facing. But it cannot dig in further and get any further information off of that tag. That would be based on the investigator that queries that tag later on. As I mentioned, it's a web-based program. It's got unlimited end users for us that can also search for make and model. It does that based off of the headlights and taillights of the vehicle. Those are programmed into the Flock system, so it knows a Honda Civic compared to a Hyundai Sonata or something like that. Obviously, color, the camera can tell what color the car is. So it knows if a Honda Civic passed the camera. So if we have a suspect vehicle that's a Honda Civic and we know it was in this area, we can query Honda Civic in this area and it'll pull up all Honda Civics that pass that camera. And from there, you weed down from there. Like, say one car the suspect vehicle didn't have a hubcap on the left side or it had a sticker in the window. You can further weed down from there what you're actually looking for. It downloads the NCIC hot list 4 times daily automatically. And then we can also create local hot lists as well for vehicles that we're looking for locally for crimes that we know are going on. This next slide, it's a call for service. This is raw data. This is simply calls for service that came in for the district CP1 through CP08. Those are were our 8 districts. We're broken into 3 districts now. But this kind of gives a snapshot of the whole city's calls for service for shots fired and stolen vehicles. So District 1 was more like 5th Street Southwest, heading out towards 64. It includes Prospect Avenue, Bailey Road, Rock Creek, parts of Cherry Avenue. District 2 is more of like the Belmont area, South First Street, Elliott Avenue, Monticello Avenue, out towards the county line. District 3 is a lot of the downtown area, excluding the mall, and north downtown to the county line, the Penn Park. District 4 is the mall itself, the bricks. District 5 is a large district. That's Emmett Street, 29 North, Charlottesville High School area, Melbourne Road, 250 Bypass, McIntyre Park. District 6 is a lot of the university area. District 7 is a smaller district. It's Knoll Street, parts of Cherry Avenue in the urban area, and then parts of Ridge Street in the 500 block. District 8 is Hardy Drive, West Street, parts of Preston Avenue. So that kind of gives a snapshot of what those numbers are and where they're located. They're broken down further here in a second in a heat map. Yes, sir.
Is that for a year?
That's from, yes, good question. That's from June 2022 to June 2023 is all the information that you'll see on here is from those timeframes. So for that same time frame, this is a stolen vehicle heat map. This gets broken down in a couple slides from here a little bit further. It actually adds density and numbers with this instead of just colors. As seen on that map, a majority of our stolen vehicles are being reported in the downtown, West Main, and 10th and Grady Avenue areas of the city. This one's a shots fired heat map. Over the past several months, we've seen gun violence in the center city, Fifeville, Corner, Cherry, and Harris Street areas. We've also been getting a few calls on Emmett Street and Angus Road, north or west of Emmett Street, up in the Best Buy area. So as the chief mentioned, a large majority, 85% of our shootings involve the use of vehicles, whether that be a victim showing up in a vehicle or leaving in a vehicle, or a suspect showing up in a vehicle and leaving in a vehicle. We don't typically see a lot of shootings where both parties are on foot and we have a shots fired incident. If given that vehicle description, even with no tag information, officers utilizing Flock can run that description and pull any vehicle matching the description and filter the match. We use the Elliewood Avenue homicide from last year as an example of that. We had a very good suspect vehicle description right from the moment that incident happened, where one of the cameras is proposed to be deployed, which you'll see in a minute. We would have had that information immediately and would have been able to follow up with it right then and there. We made a pretty quick arrest in that case. I think it was like 2 or 3 days, but we could have probably made a successful arrest within the first day. Just really bringing the danger down a little bit in that case. This is a combined shots fired and stolen vehicle map. They're pretty similar if you go back and actually break them apart. They're very, very similar. So this one, this actually has the camera deployments, and then this one goes into stolen firearms, which are the blue circles. Gun violence incidents, those are going to be aggravated assaults where it's a shooting, or a shots fired, a confirmed shots fired. And then we have stolen vehicles, which are the other color circles. The numbers in the middle are the actual confirmed reports of each breakdown. And then the camera locations, I can go through them. The one out by McIntyre Park is 250 Bypass at Rugby Avenue. The one up on the north end of the screen is 29 North, just north of Cookout, right near the 29 Emmett Street interchange. We have Preston Avenue at Grady Avenue. We have McIntyre Road at Ridge McIntyre Road at Preston Avenue. We have 250 at Long Street, which is Freebridge going out of the city. We have Cherry Avenue, or Ridge Street, right at Cherry Avenue, just south of the tennis courts, which we actually, in some of the community meetings, some people brought up some good information. If this gets implemented, we would probably move that camera further south towards 64, because we think we could get a lot more traffic further south of those intersections, probably south of Bailey Road. We have 10th and West Main, 14th and University, and then Roosevelt Brown Boulevard at Cherry. So those are the 10 proposed camera locations based off of not only these heat maps, but also those are arterial roads that carry the most traffic for the most part throughout the city. That Long Street location, I believe we mapped it out, and it was 40 to 50 some thousand cars a day go across that area. So that's why that one's over there. Policy recommendations. Flock safety automatically purges all information stored 30 days from capture. That's their standard setup. And that's what we're proposing. Policy will need to be implemented to ensure accountability and proper usage of the system. The draft policy, I believe I sent it. Did I not? We did. I can get it to you guys if we don't have it on here. Yeah. And it's imperative for our reasons are using the systems and our policies are transparent to the community. That's why we're holding all these meetings and all the meetings that we've been to. The policy has been handed out. We're very forthcoming with that information and what we're looking to do with the system. Some accountability measures. System administrator in the police department will conduct regular audits to ensure proper usage of the system. These will be quarterly. So what we'll be doing, each user on the system has a unique identifier, so we can see who ran what and at what time and what they're running it for. It'll normally have either a case number or a reason for running the query. And then from there, it maps that in our audit log. I can go back, look at what was ran compared to the calls for service that officer was on or may have been doing in that area. And then we can cross-reference and figure out what they were actually doing with that tag. The executive director of the PCOB will have full audit capability of the system. Information on the system can only be accessed for legitimate law enforcement purposes. And any violation found is subject to administrative discipline and referred to criminal prosecution if necessary. That's the same with any of our systems that we have. All officers have NCIC. All officers have DMV access now. We all have body cameras. We all have dash cameras that capture a large amount of data. We have audit systems in place now for all of those systems as well. And if any discrepancies are found, they're dealt with swiftly. But I can't think of any off the top of my head that have happened. So data security, all data is captured is stored for a brief period of time on that local device, which is the camera in the field. It's quickly moved from that device wirelessly to the Flock servers, and it's encrypted from then on. Flock does not partner with any third parties, so all information captured stays within the system. We put that in there because a lot of LPR companies actually contract with marketing firms to figure out where people are traveling, what times of day, so they can direct ads and stuff like that to people. Flock does not do that. And we wouldn't partner with anybody that did. And it's a fully auditable system. Every user has a unique identifier for tracking purposes. And we can also audit any agency that we provide access to regionally and remove them if an abuse is found. So in the last page of our policy, it lays out how you can request access to our camera system. You have to put it in writing, either by letter or email to the system administrator, and then on a case-by-case basis, we determine what's best in the best interest of the city of Charlottesville and the police department to release or not release at that point. So it's fully up to us who can access our information and who we give access to. But if we do give access to somebody, we can audit what they're looking at as well, and if there's something that comes up with that, we can kick them off our system. So just in summary, flock safety can be a very valuable asset to the department in not only solving crimes after they have occurred, securing a successful prosecution, but also act as a positive deterrent through proper education and media releases. If these cameras go full operational, we plan on putting social media releases out. We do not care if people know where the cameras are. We want them to know the cameras are there. It's a positive deterrent, just people knowing that the cameras are there. Other agencies in our region have implemented flock. and have noted higher clearance rates as we discussed earlier. So that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Joey.
Yes, sir.
One thing I do want to add, if you notice where we propose putting the cameras, most of them aren't in the center city. They're to capture vehicles who are coming in and out of the city. And the reason being is that what we find is most folks who come into the city and commit violent crime or involved in these shootings don't live in this city. They don't live in these communities. They come here and do this and leave. And so that's really kind of steered our strategy where we put them. So with that, any questions at all? Yes, sir.
I guess I still have some privacy concerns and just wonder what you see there. I mean, what are you hearing from other departments in terms of feedback from the communities about privacy concerns?
And so
It feels a little Big Brother to me.
I get it. No, absolutely. We've heard that. And so I think it's important to understand what's actually captured. We're capturing a picture of a license plate, right? That's what's being captured. It's not a photo of a person. It's not their face. I was asked a question yesterday. People worry, what if they had like some unpaid speeding tickets or something like that, and then there was a bench warrant for them or something, that wouldn't happen, because that's not how this works. If someone drives through a camera, the only thing that's taken a photo of is the license plate. It isn't run through DMV. It isn't run through any systems. The only system is if it's through NCIC. So if there's a stolen vehicle in NCIC, well, then that'll hit on that. Or if we specifically go in and say we are looking for this tag because it's connected to this crime, then it will alert us that that tag just went through it, but it's not going to run it. Another question I was asked about false hits. And so just because a flock camera alerts us of a hit on a vehicle, that doesn't give us a right to stop the vehicle. We can't just go stop that car. The officer would have to locate it, confirm that that tag is in fact the tag that we're looking for, and develop his or her own reasonable suspicion or probable cause to pull that car over. And so I think those are important points to understand. And I know we have folks from Flock, and if you want to come on up, and he can probably talk about some of the privacy concerns that you hear and stuff like that.
Well,
And just a quick follow-up to that. And so do you program into the system that what you're looking for so that the system alerts you when you get a hit on that particular allegation or
Correct.
infraction?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example, the Elliewood homicide that we
Right.
talked about. So when officers weren't around to that, typically when it goes out, officers get a call, we just had a shooting on Elliewood, person down, and we get all kinds of calls. Hey, the people that did this got into a silver four-door sedan. That's all we got. That was the case with the Elliewood case. Right? And so if we had Flock at that point, remember it was late at night, I think it was like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, not a lot of cars on the street anyway. Officers responding could say, we're four-door sedan, this is the car we're looking for. It would have alerted responding officers, and they would have been able to hopefully intercept that vehicle before they could go out and be involved in another crime or another shooting. So that's kind of how that would work.
Yeah, and that, the one thing I think that gets to me in terms of the privacy is that it's really not just a license plate camera. It's, like you say, it can be a gray sedan.
Right, I'm sorry,
And that
just the front
information-
and back,
that
yeah.
information stays in the database for 30 days.
Yes,
On every camera, on every car that passes every camera. And I think that might be why people are a little bit concerned. And it also goes into the Flock massive national database. And well, yes, I suppose they're nice people. And they don't have data breaches and they don't sell the data. But again, you can understand why people are concerned.
I understand. He could probably answer more about that, the database questions. I'll let him answer those. But you're right. I stand corrected. It's the front and back of the vehicle. The idea is to get the license plate.
So they can tell me where my car has been for the last 30 days.
If we were to query a tag, so if an officer were to go in and said, I don't I don't like Bill Mendez. Well, everybody likes Bill
Precisely,
Mendez.
yes.
But if someone said, if I don't like Bill Mendez, and I want to know where he's been, first of all, that's a crime. Okay, because it's not for a legitimate law enforcement purpose, which is a class 1 misdemeanor, and something like that would be referred to the Commonwealth Attorney.
Okay.
Okay?
So I assume then that your guidelines are going to be quite strong, and I look
Oh,
forward to reading them.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Kane. I'm from Flock Safety. To answer your question specifically, sir, we believe that transparency is essential. And this is exactly why we provide anyone who utilizes Flock Safety with a free transparency portal so that the public, the average citizens, lawmakers and elected officials have full visibility in terms of what data is collected, what data is shared, how many hits have been received on Flock systems, and we comply with all local and state laws. It's important to note again that as the chief mentioned, we do not collect any facial information, any personally identifiable information. In fact, we look forward to a lot of conversations with the legislature to codify these regulations into law. So it's not just a local jurisdiction or a company policy, to ensure this is something that there are appropriate guardrails in place to protect privacy. Now, it's also important to note that we do not own the information, therefore we cannot sell information, we cannot share this information because it belongs to the local jurisdictions. And all this information is stored securely, fully encrypted into the cloud.
And what in your, do you recommend the elements of what constitutes an effective audit of the use of the Flock system? Because you hear that everybody's going to audit it, quarterly or whatever, and it seems to me that that's kind of a wishy-washy if it's only restricted to a few elements of usage.
So with regard to the audits, again, as Chief mentioned, anytime there is any query, that data is captured to ensure that there can be an appropriate record and log to go back in there. So anytime there is any type of investigation, that is all cataloged and can be audited, and if the local jurisdiction approves, can be provided publicly.
And in your experience, what kind of person power LOEs is required to do these audits effectively?
It's my understanding that these are not very manpower intensive. To be quite candid with you, I have never had conversations with any law enforcement agency, and I meet regularly with a lot where it is a burden, that it is costly, that it is something that would be prohibitive in terms of doing.
And Chief, would you have a designated officer that would have that responsibility?
I have a designated division that has that responsibility. Professional Standards Division, that's what they do. Just like our Axon body camera stuff.
Okay.
So if I go in and I pull up the body cam footage of something, I can see every single person that clicked on there and watched that video.
Okay.
And so not only are we going to audit it ourselves, we're asking for Ms. Gonzalez, the executive director of the PCOB, an independent arbiter of fact, right, to audit it whenever she wants. So
She doesn't have the time.
okay.
Give us another body. You see, that's where I'm
That's
going
above
with
my
this
pay
here,
grade,
you know? I mean, no, that's.
Got a question. How have you guys dealt with stolen tags? It seems like there could be a trend of people, maybe not a massive trend, but people might want to steal tags, put them on another car, then you go out. You'll see the car will mismatch the tag, but that could be a possibility.
So like I said, if someone drives through there and they just have a stolen tag,
Yeah.
not stolen car.
Right.
So there's a difference. If someone steals a tag off your license plate, off your car, and you report that, that's entered differently into the system than someone stealing your car. Okay.
But if I'm a criminal, right?
Uh-huh.
I go out tonight and I cause a crime, but I got the wrong tags,
Right.
right, on my car.
Uh-huh.
And then you come after
you.
right, or the
No.
other person.
Well, that goes back to my point. It's just a photo. It's just one piece.
Right.
We still got to do work. We can't just go
Right.
pull you over and arrest you because you have that tag on your car. We got to do a lot more
Right.
work.
Okay.
I had a question. I just wanted to know, was there any data to show like how much sooner arrests were made with the use of the flock safety system?
So I don't have specific data in front of me. I can tell you through conversations with my peers, and you, I don't know if you guys do, but it's almost immediately sometimes. I mean, Harrisonburg recently did a whole presentation on their successes with the system, identifying missing children or missing people that they've been able to recover. The city of Alexandria had one. It was a vehicle that was entered in NCIC, an escaped prisoner from, I want to say, Wisconsin or somewhere out in the Midwest, and it hit, and they were able to capture that person in the city of Alexandria. So I don't know if that data is out there, so I don't want to speak to that. But, I mean, you can imagine the effectiveness of being able to get violent individuals off the street that are involved in crimes, going back to that Elliewood incident. It's important so they don't commit other crimes.
Yeah, I think it was great that you guys mentioned that there could be a quicker turnaround for arrests being made. I think of like the community and how everyone was in like a panic when we had those 5 homicides this past year, and how, you know, when things happen in Charlottesville, with Charlottesville being so small, how people don't really know how to respond. And so it would be great that we're able to provide more updates and show them data to show that this is an actual system that's working. It might give them more reassurance in the police department as well.
So I agree with you, and I will say that I don't see a rollout of this that doesn't include a pilot program that has oversight for multiple levels, right? And so I think that's the right way to do it, crawl, walk, run. And because, excuse me, we do have to balance the concerns over privacy and Big Brother and all that very important stuff with keeping our community safe. I hear those same things from folks when I'm out speaking with people in the community. We've heard that through these different conversations that we've been having, where folks are asking me, what do you mean, why don't we have it? All these other cities in the state have it, why don't we? And I get those questions. And so, so yes, I agree with you, but we got to make sure we do it right. And I think a pilot would probably be the best way to roll something like this out. I suspect that that'll probably be our recommendation down the road.
You get to have your comments. That'll be the next thing and the next thing at the end of this.
Are there any other questions from the board?
One just a quick question, Chief. Have you talked about this with the Commonwealth Attorney?
Yes,
And
he supports it.
is he on board with it?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Jeff, what was your question?
If the chief had discussed it with the Commonwealth Attorney and whether the Commonwealth Attorney was on board with it. Because I don't know if maybe the gentleman from the company could answer, presents prosecutorial challenges.
Well, I could probably answer that I don't see where it really would, because you can't just pull someone over because it hits, because you get a hit. You have to develop your own reasonable suspicion and probable cause to actually make that stop. So,
And so a right to privacy argument.
I would say that's more in the civil side.
Mr. Fogel could answer that.
Right, yeah, yeah, probably.
I know you may not have any idea, but there have been efforts at the state level to outlaw ALPRs. And do you see that likely to succeed?
I know there was a conversation several years ago talking about it. I don't know when it was, but I remember there was a time where you can hold that data forever from LPRs.
That's true.
That's no longer the case. And so, but now, I don't know specifically. I have not heard that.
Okay.
The flock folks, do your folks in Richmond know if there's any movement to outlaw LPR?
Sir, none that I'm aware of right now. We're having a lot of conversations with privacy organizations, with members of the legislature, with honestly all key stakeholders about how this could be used responsibly, again, to build those appropriate guardrails. But to answer directly your question, I'm not aware of any specific efforts to outlaw this technology.
Any other questions?
Is there anything that kind of suggested why, I'm just thinking, just because, well, let me ask you, are the cameras very small?
We showed a picture of,
Was it on there a minute ago?
it's on the first slide, if you pull that up real quick.
Because those numbers, the amount that crime went down was impressive, but I'm sitting there thinking like, unless people can see a camera, it's less likely they're gonna really stop doing what they were gonna do.
You can see
anyway.
it.
So
You can see it because it's on
okay.
solar, like a solar dish.
Yes, sir. It's
Yeah.
solar powered. The actual camera itself
Right.
is probably about that big.
Okay.
Or so.
And
it
we're
aim-
gonna
and it-
advertise
and
where
it
they are.
aims low enough to get license tags, even though you have trucks and small cars and all.
Right there.
different- Okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Is it always on? Is it constantly on? Is that how it works, so that it's just reading
Yes, sir.
everything that goes by?
Yes.
Okay.
And so every 30 days it deletes or archives or what'd you say?
Yes, sir. It's a
30 day?
hard delete on a 30-day rolling basis.
Okay. Gotcha.
Anything else?
I believe not. I'm sure that there are people who have public comments on this issue.
Yeah, I'm
and that's-
sure, and that's-
That's our next,
It's okay.
yeah, I just, okay, go ahead, all right, go ahead.
So most of it will be citizens who are calling it in. I mean, because the camera's not gonna pick up, quote unquote, the event. It's gonna be, something's gonna happen, citizen's gonna say, it's such and such a car, and then it gets in the system. Is that correct?
Yes, of course.
Really, that is-
I mean, look at I'll give you an example, where we were searching for the suspect in reference to the abduction that happened a few days ago. We set up a unified command center. The first thing, we had a person that we thought the suspect may have gotten into a car with that we identified and their tag number. The first thing we did was reach out to jurisdictions throughout the state that had flock to try to identify, hey, has this tag come through anywhere? Now, the person eventually did not get into a car. That's one of the first things we did. So, and to your point, ma'am, you're 100% right. At the end of the day, we could have all the technology in the world, we still need people to call us, and they do, and thank God they do. So.
Any other comments at this point from the public?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We have one raised hand in the Zoom.
Okay,
Ruby Shurian?
I'm thinking this is a public comment period, you can talk about whatever you want, but yeah.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Ruby Cherian, and I'm speaking in my capacity as an attorney at Legal Aid Justice Center. I'm asking that ALPRs not be installed in Charlottesville. I have three main reasons for this position. First, ALPR cameras pose a massive risk to privacy. This technology collects large amounts of information, such as an exact GPS location, into a database, created by scanning and retaining every license plate that passes it, not just those on a hot list. The data reveals an individual's religious, sexual, political, medical, and associational activities based on their comings and goings. There are also currently no local or state laws restricting the use of this data or limiting how long this data is retained for. The 30-day period is solely self-imposed by the private company. This should be especially concerning to us as these databases are held by the servers of private companies. In fact, private security companies have sold access to their databases to other law enforcement agencies, such as ICE, to target undocumented persons. Second, these cameras have a high risk and low reward. An ACLU report found that less than 1% of cars scanned are connected to a crime. Furthermore, technology is not immune to errors. There have been multiple reported errors leading to dangerous outcomes. In Denver, a Black mother and her children, plural, were told to lay face down in hot concrete and handcuffed after a license plate reader incorrectly read their plate, mistaking their SUV for a stolen motorcycle. Denise Green, a Black woman residing in San Francisco, was arrested after a license plate reader mistook her red Lexus for a stolen gray GMC truck. With regards to requiring reasonable suspicion for a stop, a minor traffic violation constitutes reasonable suspicion and is enough to pull someone over. Third, this technology can be used to target low-income communities, communities of color, and religious minorities. ALPRs are disproportionately placed in lower income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color, so-called strategic areas. They have also been used to target places of worship, such as mosques in New York. With less than 1% of cars scanned being connected to a crime, these cameras won't make our communities safe from gun violence and only raises privacy concerns. Can be audited and will be audited are two very different things. Thank you for your time.
Are there any comments here? Yes, Mr. Fogel.
Can I use the podium?
Oh, certainly.
I have a number of concerns, but I'd like to start off dispelling some of the things that you've been told by the police department. Law enforcement loves to tell you that whatever they do deters crime. Simply not true. We impose draconian sentencing provisions because they were going to stop crime. They don't do anything. So the notion that these cameras are going to deter crime is preposterous, and I think the department should be embarrassed about making that argument. The claim that there's significant results from other jurisdictions proves nothing. There is no proof of a causal relationship between the cameras and the reduction that has been reported in crime. There is a coincidence, certainly, if it's true, but no causal relationship. And again, this is a problem with law enforcement. They like to say that, but other people do as well. You need to prove not simply the coincidence that these two things happen, but that there's a causal relationship between them. Now, the greatest concern here is with Flock. Flock is an organization that should be examined much more closely before we get into this process. They are trying to develop a database nationally and internationally that they can utilize both to make money and presumably to sell their information, as was mentioned just before, to other law enforcement agencies, including those in other countries. Who is auditing Flock? We've been told we're going to be audited, and therefore we can be confident about what's going on here, but who's auditing Flock? Who has all the information on their server? Who's auditing all the other departments who have access to this information? Now, these are the concerns that we have. In terms of the amount of time that material is retained for, I want to point you to there's a statute governing automatic license plates, cameras in New Hampshire, and it limits retention to 3 minutes. As the chief said, you get an automatic response when you put in a license plate if it's been seen. You don't need any more than 3 minutes. And that would protect a lot of people from the notion that you could be tracked for at least 30 days of where you're going if they wanted to. So there are a lot of dangers here that have not yet been answered or resolved. The question is, if the city is interested, there are other alternatives for the city to have a system which remains within the city. And in that instance, we don't have the problem with other jurisdictions misusing information, with the need to audit them, with the need to audit Flock, or with the need to participate in what looks like an international organization that wants to gather data. Now, many of us have been concerned about privacy when the government maintains data on us. But at least we have some remedy when the government maintains data on us. We have no remedy when it comes to the private sector. And if this is going to be done, it should be wholly public and not be given to the private sector because we cannot control what they do with it. They can say we only hold it for 30 days. And if they hold it for 40 days, who's going to stop them?
Are there any other comments online?
Last chance to speak. If you'd like to speak at this time, press the raise hand icon, or you can press *9 if you're joining us via telephone.
Anyone here who hasn't spoken? In that case, we will go on to the Executive Director's report.
Give everybody a minute to clear out.
For
we're going to keep it brief since we didn't have a September meeting. There's not a whole lot for us to report. I will say that for internal affairs complaints received by the Professional Standards Division, we have 2 complaints that came in August. Both of those are pending. September, we received 3 complaints in the Office of Professional Standards Division. Those are also pending. As far as the PCOB office, we have received 0 complaints for both August and September. As you well know, since you voted on it earlier, the one and only review request that we had has now been addressed, and you have voted on it at this point. So that's done. We have no review requests pending at this time. As far as community outreach, we participated in 2 events for the month of August. That was Sabroso, the Sabroso Festival, as well as Southwood Boys and Girls Club Back to School Bash. And for the month of September, we participated with Pride, the Pride Festival. And everything actually went extremely well in those festivals. I thank everyone that participated and helped me on those. I'm very grateful to you for that. And the last thing was reporting that for the month of September, I participated in a training conference out of state. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't have the meeting for the month of September. Do we have any questions?
Where are things on getting increased staff support for the board?
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, where do we stand on getting more staff support for the executive director?
So at this point, again, as you well know, I am stuck with whatever budget was approved prior to my being hired for fiscal year 2023-2024. It allows for me to hire one other individual, and we are in the process of getting together with Human Resources to get an announcement.
I don't know if, thank you. Just one other thing. You're now a distinguished university lecturer. Just explain what you did there. That's it.
Okay, so very briefly, I was invited to speak before a class at the UVA in reference to police oversight, my experiences in law enforcement, which I will be doing again at UVA tomorrow afternoon.
Great. Okay, so was at the Batten School?
At the Batten School.
At the Batten School, and she was spellbinding.
Other than that, anybody have anything?
Any questions for the executive director?
Outstanding, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a second public comment period if anyone wants. Okay, I figured, all right, go ahead, here we go.
When the chief spoke about getting support for this from all of these neighborhood associations,
Yes.
he was the only person who spoke at the time. He's a proponent of the system, and so he was there to convince people that they should support him. I said to him, I think that's wrong. I think you should have somebody there, myself or somebody else, who can share the concerns about privacy stronger than you would. He said yes, and he said, well, he's left. He said he would invite me, but he hasn't yet. I just wanted you to know that it was a one-way presentation by the chief without anybody else. And these are not easy issues, let me tell you. Even, and I worked in the ACLU many years, and even within the ACLU, there's a lot of, it's an amorphous issue sometimes because you don't see the data gathering. It doesn't affect you for the most part. So a lot of people will say, well, why would I care about it? Well, there are those of us who care about the government gathering this kind of, I won't.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned that, you made what I'll say is a good point about a private company collecting data. And you said that there's a possibility that the city could sort of have its own internal system that would do something similar. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Can you talk more about that?
No, having read a little bit, I saw that there's alternatives to Flock. Most of those alternatives are not trying to develop a nationwide database, but to provide that information. As has been described to you, if you have the cameras, you can catch people coming in, you can catch people coming out if you know the license plate. Do we really need to have this available to people in California, law enforcement in California, or Nevada, or, there's a lot of bad places with bad police. And there's other issues also. There are states now that make it illegal to travel outside the state to get an abortion. Would they be interested in having this information about who's traveling where? Again, these are open questions. And I just leave you with them because I don't know the answers.
One more quick question for you now. Some municipalities who have adopted Flock, they actually canvass the neighborhoods where the cameras are going to be. Would that, I mean, if the people wanted it, I mean, you know, I mean, would that help?
If people, I'm sorry, I missed part of what you said.
The idea is that their community outreach was to actually canvass the communities. And only if the community's approved, the neighborhood's approved, would a camera go in. Is that?
I think that's the national organization versus local is what you're really talking about.
Well, no, I'm just thinking.
Each neighborhood you're talking about, I think.
Well, no, I'm just saying that, yeah, I mean, we have all these concrete, we have all these big problems of sort of national data. But some people could still say, hey, I want this anyway.
Well, they could put it up on their house. Nobody can stop them, the way the businesses do as well. You know, the cameras on the downtown mall are covering most of the downtown mall, and it's been accomplished by the businesses, which is appropriate. Not for the city to pay for it, but for the businesses protecting their own interests right there. And when you combine them all, you have a good picture. So I don't have an objection to private companies having it right on their property to protect their property. That makes sense. But here, you know, if you can cover people coming in and going out of the city, what more do you really need? And if you can put in a hit. Now, what they're going to say is, well, we want to keep it for 30 days in case something happens and we can add to it. Well, it's just not worth it, I think, for the privacy concerns. If you can put in information that you have about a crime that's already been committed, you're going to get an immediate hit. And as New Hampshire says, you don't need to keep it more than 3 minutes in order to get the information that you need. And then again, if we can keep it local, we don't have a lot of the concerns about Flock, about other, I'm repeating myself, I apologize.
Thank you.
So we could get by our own cameras then.
Anybody online who would like to make a comment?
So if you'd like to speak at this time, click the raise hand icon or press star 9. Mr. Chair, I see no raised hands at this time.
Is there a motion, are there any other remarks or discussion for the good of the organization? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
So moved.
You're seconding, right?
Second.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Turner, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Charles Fleming? He's muted. Well, I don't like to override anyone's right to vote, but I think
We have a majority.
the majority has passed.
Majority has passed it.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.
So, James.